The stars twinkled peacefully in the viewport as Admiral William Carter made his morning rounds on the bridge of the UES Valiant. It was another quiet day on patrol at the edge of human space. Humanity had spread to 3 solar systems beyond Earth, building colonies and research stations. For almost 30 years, there had been peace among the stars. "Status report, Lieutenant," Carter said, accepting a cup of coffee from his aide. "All systems normal, sir," said Lieutenant Jane Foster, her eyes scanning the displays. "Deep space. Sensors show nothing unusual. The research team on Europa just sent their weekly update. All proceeding as planned." Carter nodded. At 55, he had spent most of his life serving in the United Earth Defense Force. His gray hair and the lines around his eyes showed the years of service. What had once been a military focused on Earth's conflicts had evolved into a peacekeeping force that mainly escorted science vessels and protected trade routes. "Sir," called out Communications Officer Frank Riley, his hand suddenly pressing against his earpiece. "I'm picking up an emergency signal from Europa Station." Carter set down his coffee. "Put it through." The speakers crackled with static. Then a panicked voice broke through. "This is Europa Research Station. We are under attack. Unknown vessels, not matching any known configuration. They've disabled our—" The transmission cut off abruptly. "Get them back," Carter ordered, but Riley shook his head. "No signal, sir. The station's transponder has gone offline." The bridge fell silent. Carter's mind raced through possibilities. Pirates? Terrorists? Some kind of accident? "Set course for Europa, maximum speed. Alert all nearby vessels to converge." On those coordinates. Before the navigator could respond, multiple alarms blared across the bridge. The tactical display lit up with warning signals. "Sir, massive energy signatures appearing near Tau Ceti," shouted the sensor officer. They're not using any known jump points." On the main screen, several strange vessels appeared seemingly out of nowhere. They were unlike anything Carter had ever seen. Smooth, asymmetrical shapes that seemed to bend the light around them, with no visible engines or weapons. "Open a channel," Carter ordered. "Unknown vessels, this is Admiral William Carter of the United Earth Defense Force. You have entered human space. State your intentions immediately." No response came. Instead, the alien ships accelerated toward the nearest human colony. "Sir, they're charging weapons," the tactical officer reported. "Red alert. All hands to battle stations." Carter grabbed the ship-wide comm. "This is not a drill. Prepare for combat." The Valiant's shields hummed to life as the crew scrambled to their positions. Carter watched in growing horror as the first alien beam struck the colony's orbital defense platform. The structure didn't just take damage, it disintegrated entirely. "Get me Earth Command now," Carter ordered. In Washington, D.C., President Sofia Rodriguez was in the middle of a council meeting when the emergency alert came through. The large screen on the wall switched from economic projections to a direct feed from the Valiant. "Madam President." Carter's voice was steady despite the chaos visible behind him. "We are under attack by unknown forces. Europa Station has been destroyed, and Tau Ceti colonies are being hit. These are not pirates or known entities. We are facing a full-scale invasion by an alien species." The council room erupted in shocked voices. Rodriguez raised her hand, silencing them. "What are their capabilities, Admiral?" "Far beyond ours," Carter admitted. "Their weapons cut through our strongest shields like they're not even there. I've ordered all civilian ships to retreat, but—" The transmission shook as the Valiant took a hit. "We need to evacuate the outer colonies immediately. These attackers show no interest in communication." "Do we have any idea who they are or what they want?" Rodriguez asked. "None, Madam President. They struck without warning or declaration." Intelligence Officer Catherine Bell stepped forward. "Madam President, initial analysis suggests their technology is at least 2 centuries ahead of our most advanced systems. The attack pattern indicates this isn't random. They're specifically targeting our military installations and major population centers." Rodriguez took a deep breath. In her 3 years as president of the United Earth government, she had faced trade disputes and minor conflicts, but nothing like this. "Admiral Carter, your priority is to save as many lives as possible. Begin evacuation procedures for all outer colonies. I'm declaring a state of emergency and activating Defense Protocol Omega. Across-Earth emergency broadcasts interrupted regular transmissions. Families gathered around screens to see their president's grim face delivering news that would change human history. Citizens of Earth and her colonies, Rodriguez began. 1 hour ago, unknown alien forces launched an unprovoked attack against our outposts and colonies. We have confirmed the destruction of Europa Research Station and attacks on Tau Ceti settlements. These acts of aggression have resulted in thousands of casualties. In homes across Earth, shock and fear spread. In New Boston, Alan Summers, the Secretary of Defense, watched the address from his emergency bunker while coordinating with military commands worldwide. We do not yet know why these beings have chosen to attack us, but their intentions are clear. Rodriguez continued. They seek our destruction. I have ordered the immediate evacuation of our outer settlements and the full mobilization of the United Earth Defense Force. Back on the Valiant, Admiral Carter was organizing a defensive line to cover the civilian exodus. 3 more UEDF ships had arrived, forming a protective screen around the evacuation vessels. They're coming around for another pass, Lieutenant, Foster reported, her uniform now stained with blood from a minor head wound. Carter gripped the command rail. Hold position. All power to forward shields. We need to give those transports 5 more minutes to jump to safety. The alien vessels approached with unnatural precision. The lead ship fired, and one of the human frigates simply came apart, its hull splitting into pieces as though cut by a giant invisible blade. Sir, at this rate we won't last 5 minutes, the tactical officer said quietly. Carter's jaw clenched. We'll last exactly as long as we need to. Every second we give those civilians is a second more they have to reach safety. On Earth, scientists were already analyzing the limited data coming in from the battles. Dr. Elijah Winters, head of the Advanced Physics Division at NASA, stared at the readings with growing concern. These energy signatures don't make sense, he told his colleague Susan Rivera. It's like they're manipulating gravity itself as a weapon. Rivera shook her head. We're decades away from even theoretical applications of such technology. If that's what they're using. She didn't finish the thought. As the first day of the attack ended, the human death toll reached 30,000. 7 colonies had gone silent. The UEDF had lost 23 ships with 14 more damaged beyond repair. In the war room beneath the White House, President Rodriguez looked at the grim faces around her. We need to understand what we're dealing with. More importantly, we need to find a way to fight back. Alan Summers nodded. They struck first thinking we would be an easy target. They're about to learn why that was their biggest mistake. Outside, the night sky seemed darker somehow, as humanity faced the stars not with wonder, but with the dawning realization that they were no longer alone, and the universe was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. 6 months had passed since the first attack. Admiral William Carter stood on the observation deck of the Luna base, watching as another fleet of refugee ships arrived from the outer colonies. His uniform hung loose on his frame. He had lost. Weight and sleep had become a luxury he rarely enjoyed. That's the last group from Alpha Centauri, said Commander Dan Mitchell, joining him at the window. We've evacuated everyone we could. Carter nodded. The past months had been a non-stop retreat. The aliens, now identified as the Zalari, had pushed through human defenses with frightening efficiency. Every direct engagement had ended in heavy losses for Earth forces. How many ships did we lose covering their escape? Carter asked. 3, Mitchell replied, including the Dauntless. Carter closed his eyes briefly. Captain Gloria Wright and her crew had been friends, but grief was a luxury he couldn't afford either. The Dauntless bought time for 5,000 civilians. Remember that. Below them, in the vast underground complex of Luna Base, those civilians were being processed, assigned temporary quarters, and added to the growing population of refugees. Earth cities were already swelling with people who had lost everything. In the research wing of the base, Dr. Elijah Winters had barely left his laboratory in 3 days. His team was working around the clock, analyzing debris from Zalari ships destroyed in battle. It wasn't much. The aliens' vessels usually disappeared in a strange implosion when critically damaged, leaving little to study. Susan Rivera, his chief engineer, burst into the lab. Her eyes were bright with excitement, the first positive expression Carter had seen in weeks. "We found something," she said, waving a tablet. "The shield frequency patterns. They're not random." Winters took the tablet, scanning the data. "You're right. There's a cycle. Every 73 seconds, there's a millisecond fluctuation in the lower bands. It's not much," Rivera admitted. "But it's a weakness. If we could hit them with enough concentrated energy at exactly the right moment, we might break through." Winters finished. He looked up at her. "This is the first good news in months. Let's bring it to Carter." On Earth, the changes were visible from space. Massive factories that had once produced consumer goods now churned out weapons and ships. In fields outside major cities, military training grounds expanded daily as new recruits learned to fight an enemy they barely understood. President Rodriguez was addressing the United Earth Council in the underground chamber that had replaced the White House as the seat of government. "These Zalari have made no attempts at communication," she said. "Their pattern is clear. They target our military assets first, then civilian infrastructure. They're methodical, and they're not interested in resources or surrender. This is extinction." Alan Summers, the Secretary of Defense, stood to speak. "We've lost 14 colonies and 7 research outposts. We've been forced to abandon the entire Tau Ceti system. But we've also learned from every engagement." He gestured to the display showing Earth's defenses. "We've doubled our production capacity. Every day we build more ships, more weapons. Our newest vessels incorporate what we've learned about Zalari attack patterns." "Will it be enough?" asked one of the council members. Summers met the question with a steady gaze. "6 months ago they caught us unprepared. We didn't know they existed. Now we do. Now we're ready." In orbit around Jupiter, the remains of the Fourth Fleet had adopted a new strategy. Commander Peter Reeves had discovered that the giant planet's radiation interfered with Zalari sensors. His ships hid in the radiation belts, emerging only to strike at passing enemy vessels before disappearing again. "We can't beat them head-on," Reeves told his officers aboard the UES Sentinel. "But we can bleed them, make them pay for every inch of space." Lieutenant Kelly Barnes, his tactical officer, studied the holographic display showing a Zalari patrol route. "They're creatures of habit, same course every 31 hours. Then we'll be waiting for them," Reeves said. "Right here." He pointed to a spot where the patrol passed close to a particularly dense radiation band. "Prepare the new torpedoes. Let's see if Dr. Winter's theory about their shield frequencies holds up." On Mars, the military academy had been transformed. General Mary Dawson had created a new training program based on Earth's long history of guerrilla warfare. In a vast underground complex, soldiers learned to fight against technologically superior forces. "They have better ships, better weapons, better shields," Dawson told a group of new recruits. "But they have weaknesses too. They're predictable. They don't adapt quickly, and they've never fought humans before." She activated a hologram showing Zalari battle formations. "They fight like machines, following the same patterns. We need to fight like humans, unpredictable, creative, tenacious." Among the recruits was Sam Collins, a former college teacher who had lost his family when the Zalari destroyed the New Eden colony. "Will we ever take back what they took from us?" he asked. Dawson met his eyes. "That's why we're here. Not just to survive, to win." Back on Luna Base, Admiral Carter reviewed Rivera's findings with growing hope. "If this works, it could change everything. We'll need to modify our weapons," Rivera explained, "and timing will be critical. We'll have milliseconds to hit them during the shield fluctuations." Carter nodded. "How quickly can you implement this?" "We've already sent the specifications to Earth's production facilities," Winters said. "The first modified weapons should be ready within 2 weeks." Carter turned to look at the Earth hanging in space beyond the viewport. Blue oceans, white clouds, continents now crowded with refugees. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to feel something besides grim. Determination. Let's bring this to President Rodriguez, he said. And then I want to talk to Commander Reeves. Jupiter will be the perfect testing ground. That night, as the lights of Luna Base dimmed to simulate night, Carter found himself unable to sleep. Again. He walked the corridors, checking on personnel, stopping to speak with refugees, making mental notes of supplies needed and morale issues to address. He paused at the memorial wall, where photos and names of the fallen were displayed. 30,000 names from the first day, tens of thousands more since then. His fingers traced the image of the Europa Research Station, the first target. They thought we'd break, he said quietly to the empty corridor. They thought we'd surrender. A maintenance worker passing by stopped, recognizing the Admiral. Sir, did you say something? Carter turned. The man wore the patch of the Tau Ceti colonies on his uniform, another refugee who had found a way to serve. I was just thinking, Carter said. The Zilari struck first because they thought it would end us quickly, but they made a mistake. What's that, sir? Carter looked back at the memorial wall, then to the Earth visible through a nearby viewport. They never studied our history. Humans have faced extinction before. We've survived ice ages, plagues, world wars. We're still here. His voice hardened. And we're not going anywhere. For the first time in months, Admiral William Carter slept through the night. Tomorrow, humanity would stop retreating. Tomorrow, they would start to fight back. 9 months into the war, a damaged Zilari ship drifted in Jupiter's orbit. It had survived an attack by Commander Reeves's guerrilla fleet, but just barely. Now it floated, engines dead, its strange hull reflecting the gas giant's swirling clouds. Approach. With extreme caution, Admiral Carter ordered from the bridge of the UES Valiant. Any sign of self-destruct sequences, pull back immediately. The boarding team, led by Lieutenant Kelly Barnes, moved across the gap between ships in specialized combat suits. Each carried weapons modified according to Dr. Winters's specifications, designed to work during the brief moments when Zilari shields fluctuated. Hull breach secured, Barnes reported over the comm. We're inside, no signs of life yet. Carter exchanged glances with Susan Rivera, who had insisted on joining this mission. After months of studying scraps of alien technology, she now had a chance to examine an intact ship. Their environmental systems are still running, Barnes continued. Atmosphere is breathable but different. Higher oxygen content, trace elements we don't recognize. Proceed to the control center, Carter said. Rivera, stay close to Barnes. Your priority is to download any data you can access. The team moved, cautiously through corridors that seemed to bend in ways that confused human eyes. The ship's interior was smooth, with few sharp angles and controls that responded to touch rather than physical switches. Sir, Barnes's voice came over the comm again. We've found them. 3 Zilari, all dead. Appears to be from the battle damage. What do they look like? Carter asked, voicing the question all of humanity had wondered since the attacks began. There was a pause. Humanoid, sir, but very different, taller than us, maybe 7 feet. Their skin appears metallic, almost crystalline. No visible mouth, just these sensor arrays where a face would be. Their limbs are longer, jointed differently. Rivera broke in, excitement in her voice. Admiral, I've accessed their systems. I'm downloading everything now. Back on Earth, in the underground research facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Elijah Winters and his team worked day and night to understand the Zilari data. President Rodriguez and Secretary Summers visited frequently, eager for any advantage, against the enemy that had pushed humanity to the brink. They've been watching us for decades, Winters explained, displaying information on a large screen, intercepting our transmissions, studying our expansion patterns. Why attack now? Rodriguez asked. Why not earlier, or wait longer? Winters pointed to a series of projections. According to their models, human technology was advancing too, quickly. Their simulations showed that within 50 years we would have developed capabilities equal to theirs. They decided on a preemptive strike. They attacked us because we might become a threat someday? Summers shook his head in disbelief. Yes, But here's what's interesting, Winters continued. Their models were strictly mathematical, based on technological development rates, resource consumption patterns, expansion speed. What they failed to include was human behavior under threat. Rivera, who had returned from the Jupiter mission, added, their models didn't account for our ability to adapt rapidly, to innovate when our backs are against the wall. So they expected us to collapse, Rodriguez said slowly, to give up after the first wave of attacks. Exactly. Winters displayed another image, what appeared to be a Zalari analysis of human response patterns. They're confused by our continued resistance. According to their calculations, we should have sought terms of surrender months ago. In a training facility on Mars, General Mary Dawson watched as her soldiers practiced boarding maneuvers against a replica of a Zalari ship built using the data from the captured vessel. The soldiers moved with practiced precision, their tactics evolving based on real combat experiences. They learn by pattern, Dawson explained to Sam Collins, who had proven himself an exceptional recruit. The Zalari analyze data, develop a response, and stick to it. They don't improvise well. And we do, Collins said, understanding. It's our greatest strength, Dawson agreed. Humans are messy, emotional, unpredictable. We try things that shouldn't work, take risks that seem illogical. On the Jupiter front, Commander Reeves's tactics had grown increasingly effective. His ships no longer just hid in radiation belts. They used the massive planet's gravity to slingshot them at unusual angles, attacking Zalari vessels from unexpected vectors. They can't predict what they don't understand, Reeves told his crew after their third successful ambush, and they don't understand human ingenuity. Admiral Carter stood before the United Earth Council, presenting the intelligence gathered from the captured ship and subsequent battles. The Zalari communicate through a form of quantum entanglement, he explained. It's why we couldn't intercept their transmissions, but now that we understand the principle, we can disrupt it. And their weapons? Asked a council member. Advanced, but not magical, Carter replied. They manipulate gravitational fields with incredible precision. Dr. Winters' team is already developing countermeasures. President Rodriguez leaned forward. Admiral, based on all we now know, can we win this war? Carter met her gaze steadily. 6 months ago, I would have said survival was our best hope. Today I believe we can do more than survive. We can defeat them. Later, in the privacy of his office, Carter reviewed the latest reports from across the solar system. Earth's factories were now producing ships with modified shields designed to counter Zalari weapons. The new targeting systems that could exploit the enemy's shield fluctuations were being installed on all vessels. He looked up as Susan Rivera entered carrying a data tablet. Admiral, you need to see this. She placed the tablet before him. It showed detailed analysis of Zalari communication patterns. They're concerned, she said. For the first time, they're uncertain about the outcome. Carter scrolled through the data. They're calling for additional forces. Yes, but look at this transmission from their command. Rivera highlighted a section. They don't understand why their initial models failed so completely. They're trying to recalculate likely outcomes, but they keep running into the same problem. Which is? Us. Rivera smiled slightly. Human unpredictability. They can't model it because it doesn't follow logical patterns. Our emotions, our willingness to sacrifice, our ability to find hope in the darkest moments. These aren't variables they can quantify. Carter leaned back in his chair. They studied our peaceful expansion, he said quietly. But they never studied our history of war. In the heart of what had once been NORAD, Dr. Nathan Hayes, a quantum physicist on Winters' team, was putting the finishing touches on a new weapon. Based on the principles of Zalari gravitational manipulation, but refined through human ingenuity, it created a controlled disruption in spacetime. The theory is sound, he told Rivera when she visited his lab. If it works, it will turn their own technology against them. Rivera examined the device. When can we test it? Hayes looked at her, with tired but determined eyes. We already have, on a small scale, in the lab. Now we need a real-world target. Carter called a meeting of his top commanders. On the display before them was a map of the solar system, showing Zalari positions. One location was highlighted, a forward base they had established on Titan, Saturn's largest moon. "This is where we test Hayes' weapon," Carter said. "This is where we show them that humanity is done retreating." He looked around at the faces of men and women who had fought for Earth's survival for nearly a year. The Zalari struck first because they believed it would be easy. It's time they learned why that was their biggest mistake. The battle for Saturn began on a Tuesday. Admiral Carter watched from the bridge of the UES Valiant as the human fleet assembled. 18 months after the first Zalari attack, Earth was finally ready to strike back. "All ships report ready, sir," said Lieutenant Foster. Her face showed the scars from the first battle, but her eyes were clear and determined. Carter nodded. "Begin Operation Typhoon." Across the fleet, engines flared as ships moved into attack formation. They had trained for this moment for weeks, practicing the complex maneuvers needed to catch the Zalari off guard. The plan relied on speed, surprise, and the new technologies developed from studying the alien ship. "Zalari base on Titan has detected our approach," Foster reported. "They're launching defensive vessels." The main screen showed the alien ships, rising from the orange moon's surface. They moved with their usual precision, forming a barrier between the human fleet and the base. "Just as we expected," Carter said. "Commander Reeves, begin Phase 2. From the far side of Saturn, hidden in the planet's rings, Reeves's ship suddenly accelerated. They had been positioned days earlier, waiting for this moment. The Zalari, focused on the main fleet approaching from the front, failed to detect this flanking movement until it was too late. "Firing modified torpedoes," Reeves reported. The weapon struck the rear of the Zalari formation just as their shields cycled, through the brief fluctuation that Susan Rivera had discovered. For the first time in the war, human weapons penetrated Zalari defenses cleanly. 3 alien ships exploded, creating gaps in their line. Carter didn't hesitate. "Forward fleet, advance through the gaps. Boarding teams, prepare for deployment." The human ships surged forward. Unlike previous battles where they had been forced to retreat, this time they pressed the attack relentlessly. The Zalari, facing a strategy they had never encountered, struggled to adapt. On the surface of Titan, the Zalari base scrambled to respond. The alien commander sent urgent communications to their fleet, but the humans had deployed new jamming technology designed by Rivera's team. The messages never arrived. "We've reached optimal range for Hayes' weapon," Foster announced. Carter took a deep breath. This was the moment that would determine whether months of work by Earth scientists would pay off. "Target the main power core of the base. Fire when ready." The gravitational displacement weapon activated. There was no beam, no explosion, just a sphere of distorted space that expanded from the weapon's emitter. When it reached the Zalari base, the effects were immediate and devastating. Metal twisted. Structures collapsed inward. The entire facility seemed to fold in on itself like paper crumpling in an invisible hand. "Direct hit," Foster reported, her voice barely above a whisper. "Base destroyed." A cheer went up across the bridge, quickly silenced by Carter's raised hand. "This isn't over. Boarding teams, proceed with your mission." Across the battlefield, specialized shuttles carried soldiers toward the disabled Zalari ships. Among them was Sam Collins, now a squad leader in General Dawson's forces. His team approached a large Zalari cruiser that had lost propulsion. "Remember your training," he told his soldiers as they prepared to board. "They're stronger than us, but they're not used to close combat. Use the confined spaces to your advantage." The boarding shuttle attached to the alien hull. Cutting tools made short work of the outer layer, and then the soldiers were inside, moving through the strange corridors with practiced efficiency. The Zalari they encountered were tall, just as described from the Jupiter mission. Their crystalline bodies reflected the light from the humans' weapons. They fought with energy weapons that fired gravitational pulses, but in the narrow passageways of their own ship, they couldn't bring their full technology to bear. Collins led his team toward the bridge. Our objective is to capture, not destroy, he reminded them. We need their navigational data. The battle lasted for 3 days. The human fleet suffered losses. 7 ships destroyed, many more damaged. But the Zalari losses were far greater. For the first time, they experienced defeat. In the aftermath, Carter stood in the command center aboard the Valiant, surveying the damage reports. "A costly victory," he said to Susan Rivera. "But a victory nonetheless," she replied. "And we've confirmed that Hayes's weapon works. The Zalari have never seen anything like it." Carter nodded. "What have we learned from the captured ships?" Rivera activated a display showing the data collected from the Zalari vessels. Their main fleet is concentrated in the asteroid belt. They've been building a forward base there, preparing for a final push toward Earth. And their home system? We have the coordinates now. Rivera's eyes gleamed with fierce satisfaction. We know where they came from. On Earth, President Rodriguez addressed the United Earth Council. The mood was cautiously optimistic for the first time since the war began. "The victory at Saturn marks a turning point," she said. "But we must be clear. This is not the end. The die. Zalari still outnumber us, and their technology remains superior in many ways." Alan Summers stood to speak. "What our forces have proven is that superior technology alone is not enough. The Zalari fight like machines, predictable, inflexible. Humans adapt, improvise, and overcome." In his laboratory, Dr. Nathan Hayes worked on an improved version of his gravitational weapon. The test at Titan had succeeded beyond expectations, but he knew they could make it more powerful. "The principle is similar to their own technology," he explained to Dr. Winters, "but we've taken it in a different direction. They use precision, carefully calculated fields that cut and slice. We've gone for raw power, creating localized space-time distortions that tear matter apart at the molecular level." Winters studied the designs. "They've never considered this. Application?" Hayes shook his head. "Their approach is elegant, mathematical. Ours is messier, more human." On the far side of Mars, hidden from possible Zalari observation, Earth had been building a new fleet. Ships constructed using the knowledge gained from studying alien technology. Crews trained in the tactics that had proven successful at Saturn. "General, Dawson inspected the troops that would man these vessels. You've all seen combat against the Zalari," she told them. "You know their strengths and weaknesses. Most importantly, you know they can be beaten." Sam Collins stood among the soldiers. The battle at Titan had changed him, hardened him, but also given him something he had lost when New Eden fell: hope. "Are we taking the fight to them?" he asked Dawson after the briefing. She nodded. "Admiral Carter is planning something big. We're not just defending anymore." Back on the Valiant, Carter studied the map of the solar system, now updated with the positions of all known Zalari forces. The victory at Saturn had pushed them back, disrupted their plans, but the aliens were regrouping. They would adapt, develop countermeasures. "We need to strike again," he said to his officers, "before they can recover. This time we target their main base in the asteroid belt." Foster looked up from her station. "Sir, intelligence suggests they've reinforced that position significantly. It won't be like Titan." "No," Carter agreed. "It will be harder. But we have something they don't expect." He pointed to a section of the display showing Earth's shipyards. "Hayes's weapon has been installed on all our new vessels, and we have another advantage." "What's that, sir?" Foster asked. Carter's expression was grim but determined. "They still think they're fighting a primitive species. They struck first because their calculations told them we would be easy prey. It's time to show them just how wrong they were." 2 years after they struck first, the Zalari sent a message requesting peace talks. The communication arrived at Earth's defense headquarters on a quiet morning. Admiral William Carter read the message 3 times before he believed it was real. After the battle in the asteroid belt, after the destruction of the Zalari forward base, after Earth forces had pushed into the outer solar system, finally, the enemy wanted to talk. "Could it be a trap?" asked President Rodriguez when the Earth Council gathered to discuss the message. Secretary Summers shook his head. Our intelligence suggests they're sincere. The battles at Saturn and the asteroid belt changed everything. They've never faced an enemy who could fight back after taking such heavy initial losses. Carter agreed. The Zalari expected us to surrender within months of their first attack. Instead, we adapted, we learned, and we turned their own technology against them. The meeting room fell silent as everyone considered the cost of those victories. Millions dead. Colonies destroyed. Earth itself forever changed by the influx of refugees and the rapid militarization of society. We will meet with them, Rodriguez decided, but not from a position of weakness. Admiral Carter, prepare the fleet. If this is genuine, we negotiate. If it's a trap, we finish this war once and for all. The meeting place was set. Neutral space between Mars and the asteroid belt. The UES Valiant would represent Earth, while the Zalari would send a single diplomatic vessel. As the day approached, Carter found himself on the observation deck of the Valiant, looking at the stars. Lieutenant Foster joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Thinking about how it all started, sir? She asked, handing him a cup. Carter nodded. Europa Station, that first day when they hit us without warning. He sipped the coffee. Did you ever imagine we'd be here, preparing for peace talks rather than another battle? Foster's scarred face showed a small smile. After that first year? No, sir. I thought we were fighting for survival, not victory. The Zalari ship arrived precisely on schedule. It was smaller than their warships but shared the same strange, angular design. Carter watched on the main screen as it approached, stopping at the agreed distance. They're sending a shuttle, Foster reported. 1 life form aboard. Carter turned to Susan Rivera, who had been essential in understanding Zalari technology, and now would be crucial in these negotiations. Are you ready? She nodded, though her hands trembled slightly. I've been preparing for this meeting since we first captured their ship. I never thought I'd actually sit across from one of them and talk. The shuttle docked with the Valiant. Security teams stood ready, though the agreement allowed the Zalari envoy to come unarmed. The airlock cycled and then the door opened. The Zalari stood nearly 7 feet tall. Its body had the crystalline quality described in earlier reports, but up close Carter could see patterns flowing across its surface, perhaps their equivalent of expressions. Where a human would have a face, the alien had a complex array of sensors that glowed softly. I am Nexus, the Zalari said, its voice, produced by a translation device. I speak for the collective. Carter stepped forward. Admiral William Carter, representing Earth and her colonies. They moved to a conference room prepared for the meeting. The table was specially built with one side higher to accommodate the Zalari's greater height. Carter, Rivera, and 2 other officers sat across from the alien envoy. You requested this meeting, Carter began. We're listening. The Zalari's sensors pulsed. The collective has reassessed the human species. Our initial calculations were flawed. You mean you didn't expect us to fight back? Rivera said flatly. Correct. The Zalari's voice held no emotion through the translator. Our models predicted capitulation within 3.7 months of initial contact. Instead, you adapted. You survived. You developed weapons that can harm us. Carter leaned forward. You struck first without any attempt at communication. You destroyed our colonies and killed millions of our people. Why should we consider peace now? The Zalari's surface patterns shifted rapidly. Because continuation of this conflict is no longer logical for either species. Our remaining forces have retreated to our home system. Your ships now control this solar system. Neither side can achieve total victory without unacceptable losses. On screens throughout the Valiant, crews watched the meeting. On Earth and the Yao, remaining colonies, people gathered around broadcasts, holding their breath as humanity faced its enemy in conversation rather than combat for the first time. We require more than just an end to hostilities, Carter said. We need guarantees. Reparations for what was destroyed. Technology exchanged to rebuild what was lost. These terms are acceptable, the Zalari responded immediately. The collective acknowledges error in our assessment of humanity. We did not understand your species. Rivera looked directly at the alien. What didn't you understand? Your response to threat. Our studies showed your technological progression, your resource consumption, your expansion patterns. We calculated that you would become a threat to us within 50 years. Logic dictated a preemptive strike. But you never studied our history, Carter said. Our wars, our survival through ice ages and plagues and disasters. We did not, the Zellari admitted. We analyzed data, not behavior. We did not account for human determination when faced with extinction. We did not predict your capacity for rapid adaptation under pressure. Most significantly, we did not anticipate your development of the gravitational displacement weapon. Carter thought of Dr. Hayes, who had taken the Zellari's own technology and transformed it into something they had never imagined. There is something else we require, Carter said. A demilitarized zone between our territories, and your agreement that you will never again attack a human settlement. Agreed. The Zellari's patterns stabilized. We also request that you not deploy your displacement weapons against Zellari civilian populations. Carter nodded slowly. Agreed. The formal negotiations continued for days, working out the details of territory boundaries, technology exchange, and monitoring systems. When the final agreement was ready, President Rodriguez herself traveled from Earth to sign it alongside the Zellari representative. After the ceremony, Carter found himself alone with the alien envoy. They stood on the observation deck looking out at the stars. There is a question I must ask, the Zellari said. If our positions were reversed, if humans had the technological advantage and calculated that the Zellari would become a threat, would you have struck first as we did? Carter considered the question carefully. Some of us might have advised that course, but I believe we would have tried communication first, cooperation rather than destruction. Because of emotion, compassion? Partly, Carter admitted, but also because of history. Humans have learned the hard way that preemptive action often creates the very enemy you feared. The Zellari's patterns shifted in what Carter had come to recognize as contemplation. We will study your history now, all of it, to ensure we do not make the same miscalculation with other species. As the Zellari shuttle departed the Valiant, Dr. Elijah Winters joined Carter on the bridge. Do you think they truly understand now? Winters asked. Carter watched the alien ship grow smaller against the backdrop of stars. They understand enough, and so will anyone else who might consider Earth an easy target. He turned away from the viewport. We didn't start this fight, but we finished it. In the months that followed, Earth began to rebuild. The technology gained from the Zellari helped restore damaged ecosystems and construct new habitats. The outer colonies were re-established, this time with better defenses. Admiral William Carter retired from active service. On his last day in uniform, he visited the memorial on Luna Base, now expanded to include all those lost in the war. He traced his fingers over the names, remembering Europa Station and that first terrible day. They struck first, he said quietly, to the memorial, and learned why you never push Earth too far.